I've been on a roll this week, man. I don't know. I'm just been on a roll this week. Speaking of on a roll, we need to get the Colts on one. They did break a streak of not losing the opening game on opening weekend, so there's some positives. Probably didn't go as well as anyone would have liked, I guess you'd say, but they didn't lose, so you got to take the positives out of it.
It's one way to look at it. I like it.
I'm being as PC as possible today, baby.
Okay. No, you got to lay it out there. I mean, it was a game where it had everything. It was weird. It had ups, it had downs, it had uncharacteristic mistakes. The Colts just didn't play their best. I mean, that's just it. I mean, I think that the Texans are certainly vastly improved over last year, and they've got some new optimism with the new head coach and things like that. But Colts just didn't play well, and had the Colts played the way they played for the last 10 minutes and 47 seconds of that game, for a majority of that game, probably would have won by 2 scores, and that's just the reality of it. They did a lot of that to themselves, and they've left a lot of points out there, a lot of self-infliction with drop passes in the end zone, going forward on 4th and goal at the 2, coming up short, you throw a pick in plus territory, some coverage busts on a tight end that gets you for 2 touchdowns. They put it together towards the end, and they deserve credit for that. But they had the missed field goal in overtime, so all 3 phases let them down. They had a roughing the punter penalty on special teams that continue to drive, and that was huge in terms of field position and momentum, because you're going to get really good field position after that. But they run into the punter in their own end zone, and then they negate any chances they had to capitalize off of that. So a lot to clean up, and I guess the good thing is it's week 1, and it's all correctable. And if you have to pick some mistakes or things that did not go well week 1, you'd rather have mental errors with the focus and the intensity ratchet up going into week 2, as compared to come to find out, if you watch on tape, hey, our offensive line just isn't very good. We're not able to hang in there and protect, or our defensive line can't get pressure. Those things did not happen. It was just all mental mistakes for the most part, concentration, lack of execution. So hopefully they turn that around and make that cliched big jump, as they say in football, from week 1 to week 2. And they're going to have to, because it's a huge game. It's another AFC South game for the Colts on the road against the Jaguars. I don't know if it's must win, but it's pretty close to gotta have, important to get off to a good start, considering, as we've always talked about, the front loaded nature of the schedule being littered with AFC South games.
Yeah, and one of the things that I took away from that game, Matt, and one of the things I didn't want to see was Jonathan Taylor, 31 carries. He played extremely well. I mean, he just continues to show me that I think he's one of the top 3 backs in the NFL, if not the top back in the NFL. But I don't know that you can lean on him for 30 carries a game and expect to win a lot of football games, or keep him healthy throughout the duration of the season. That's one thing that I looked at. I wanted him to be around maybe 20 to 20, maybe 25. So those 6 additional carries. Matt Ryan didn't play bad. I still think they're looking for some options at wide receiver, but man, they've got to figure out a way to either distribute the ball among their running backs, or be more efficient and finish these drives and get into the end zone, because 31 carries for Jonathan Taylor. We talked about it all offseason. They've got to be they got to be a little bit more careful with him, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's I agree with you. It's certainly on the high side. That's not where he can live in reality for the remainder of the season, and expect us remain durable, remain healthy, and again for the overall success of the offense. I mean, we've talked about that, as you said, a majority of the offseason. You got to become more efficient in the passing game, and I think for the most part they were, but they just didn't execute. Like I said, throwing a pick in plus territory on a screen pass, or dropping a touchdown pass in the second quarter. I mean, those are things that'll help your passing game, obviously help the overall output of your point total, take some of the stress off of Jonathan Taylor. But the fact is, the Colts in overtime, they were going to pound him. And at that point, it's sort of like analytics and touches, all that just goes out the window. All that stuff be damned. We just try to win a football game at that point, and we got to ride our best players. And that's that's certainly what the Colts did on Sunday. You know, Matt Ryan goes over 300 yards passing. He distributed the ball pretty well, but at the end of the day, it was still Michael Pittman Jr. being the lead guy in the passing games. You know, 7 or 8 catches for over 100 yards. I think that's going to be probably the norm than the outlier. He's going to be that involved on a game-to-game basis. But yeah, it's those 3 guys. Those are going to be your stars. Nyheim Hines is going to be somewhere in the 4 to 6 catch range per game. But I'm with you. I don't think it's in the best interest of the Colts to give Jonathan Taylor 30 plus carries every game and expect him to be out there the next Sunday at full capacity and for the Colts to be in positions to win. It just sort of worked out that way based on how that game was going. Once you got into overtime and once you started that fourth quarter rally, you just had to give the ball to your best player, and that's who Jonathan Taylor is. So I guess the bigger point to all of this discussion is don't get down by 17 points and have to rely on Jonathan Taylor to help you get back into the game.
Right.
Then this week, how did the broadcast go for you? First broadcast of the season? Shake the rust off, everything ready to go?
Yeah, we were good. It was a fun game. I mean, it had everything. It had drama, right? It had it had big plays. It had, some head scratching moments on both sides. Some momentum swings. That's why the NFL, man, is so popular, because any given Sunday, and it was week 1, everybody's chomping at the bit to get back and to watch with a full slate of games. And it was exciting. Also, my first chance to get back on the road in the regular season at Houston for the first time since 2019. So that was good. With the COVID restrictions gone, we're back to normal.
I was wondering about that because Chris Denari was pointing out that I was wondering about that because Chris Denari said they're back out on the road this year for the first time as well.
Yep. So it was nice and peaceful, that plane ride, not having to worry about connecting flights and fly commercial and rental cars and things like that. You got on the plane and you got on the bus and they gave you your key or they gave you your credential. And away you go, man. I don't think I took it for granted before, but I definitely don't take it for granted now because, traveling with a team is just so relaxing because all of that stuff's taken care of for you. All you have to do is just focus on doing your job that day. And so, yeah, it was good to be back in a raucous environment there in Houston, which is, I think, and Jacksonville's sort of the same way, considering when the Colts play there, that atmosphere is always kind of ratcheted up a notch, just like it will be on Sunday. And so they are deceptively tough places to play. But that being said, the Colts are trying to break a streak of 7 consecutive losses to the Jaguars as the visiting team. And it's sort of inexplicable how some of these games have gone. If it made sense, obviously it wouldn't happen. The Colts would fix it a long time ago. So looking forward to it. And like I said, it's a monster game for the Colts. Monster game. You do not want to be 0-1-1 going into week 3 against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and this is not going to get much easier, Matt, because Jacksonville, to me, in that week 1 looked a lot better than they did all of last season and the previous couple seasons. They had opportunities to beat Washington. They let it slip away, kind of like the Colts. I mean, they had some ups and downs. They took a fourth quarter lead. They, looked like the game was going to be over there in the fourth quarter and basically found a way to lose, right? So really impressed with Trevor Lawrence. I still think he's a young quarterback making some questionable decisions. Man, but Travis Etienne, he might be a problem for the Colts. I mean, I was impressed with his ability in the run game and as a receiver out of the backfield. I mean, what have you seen from Jacksonville? What can the Colts expect trying to get that first win?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think their offense is deceptively loaded. They've got a lot of playmakers. Marvin Jones is back. He was a really tough matchup for the Colts last year in the red zone. Evan Ingram comes over in free agency from the Giants. He's a really good, versatile tight end. You talked about Trevor Lawrence and that development going from year 1 to year 2. I still think he's got the raw tools to be a superstar in this league. He's trying to put it all together. James Robinson is back at the running back position. He tore his Achilles late in the season last year, but he's a 1,000-yard rusher in the past. Zay Jones is a very, very good wide receiver. The Colts saw him last year with the Raiders, and he put up over 100 yards against the Colts last year at Lucas Oil Stadium in a game where if the Colts win that one the week before they play the Jaguars in Week 18, we're not talking about this narrative. The Colts make the playoffs. Christian Kirk, monster contract in free agency. Jamal Agnew, a huge threat on special teams as a punt return guy, a kick return guy. They loaded up on defense at the linebacker position. They draft Trayvon Walker, first overall out of Georgia. They bring in Foye Olakun out of Yale, and he was a monster last year with the Atlanta Falcons. He's another free agent, led the NFL in tackles, upgraded in the back end as well with Tyson Campbell, Andre Sisco, Rayshon Jenkins. So I think the word that I've used most this season when describing Jacksonville is deceptive. They are deceptively loaded on both sides of the ball. Now, do I think they're going to, win 10 games, 11 games and contend for the AFC South? Probably not. I still think they might be a year or two away from that. But it's markedly better from last year. And last year they split with the Colts, dominated the Colts 26-11 in Week 18 in a game that wasn't even that close. So if you think you're just going to go down there and show up this year like you maybe thought you did last year or were going to last year, the Colts are going to get upset again. And, I've said all week that I would never predict anything. I would never predict, the Colts winning a game or, this is any given Sunday in this league, as we all know in the NFL. But I am going to guarantee the Colts are going to have an edge. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder. There's going to be some pads thumping. There's going to be some heads cracking. And the Colts, being motivated to get off to a good start in this game is not going to be a problem. I can guarantee that part of the equation.